Teddy Atlas is driving through Catskill, New York, late at night in 1982, 26 years old, trainer at Cus D'Amato's boxing gym. There's a .38 caliber handgun on the passenger seat, borrowed from a friend an hour ago. He's looking for a 15-year-old kid named Mike Tyson, and when he finds him, one of them might not walk away. What happens in the next 10 minutes doesn't just end their relationship. It forces Cus D'Amato to make the hardest choice of his life. Choose loyalty, or choose greatness. Cus can't have both. Catskill, New York. Small town in the Hudson Valley. Population barely 5,000. Everyone knows everyone. The kind of place where secrets don't stay secret, where reputations matter, where a boxing gym on the second floor above the police station has produced champions. Cus D'Amato's gym. Not fancy. Wooden floors worn smooth from decades of footwork, heavy bags hanging from ceiling beams, speed bags rhythmic against brick walls, headgear stacked in corners. The smell of leather and sweat and liniment. This is where Floyd Patterson became champion, where Jose Torres learned to box, where greatness gets built one round at a time. Teddy Atlas has been here for 6 years, since 1976. Started as Cus's student, then became his assistant, his protégé, his right hand. Teddy's the one who brought life back to this gym when it was dying. When Cus was getting old and tired and ready to fade away, Teddy filled the gym with young fighters, with energy, with purpose, made Cus remember why he loved this. Then in 1980, a phone call. Social services. We have a kid, 13 years old, just came out of Tryon Juvenile Detention Center. Name's Mike Tyson. Keeps getting in trouble, keeps fighting, needs structure, needs a father figure, needs boxing. Can you take him? Cus said yes, because Cus always said yes to lost kids. That's who Cus was. Took in Patterson when nobody wanted him, took in Torres when everyone doubted him, now taking in Tyson, another broken boy who might become champion. Teddy met Mike in 1980, 12 years old, fresh out of juvie, already 190 pounds. Nothing but muscle, the kind of build that shouldn't exist on a 12-year-old. Shoulders thick, arms heavy, hands that looked like they belonged to a grown man, and fast. Frighteningly fast for someone that size. But mentally weak. That's what Teddy saw first, not the power, the fear. Mike had been hiding between abandoned building walls in Brownsville to avoid getting picked on, hiding from bullies, from gangs, from the world. And when you spend your childhood hiding between walls, Teddy knew, you never fully get outside those walls. Part of you stays trapped, always looking for the next place to hide. Cus saw a future heavyweight champion. Teddy saw a scared kid who needed discipline, who needed boundaries, who needed someone to teach him that strength isn't about hurting people. It's about protecting yourself, about control, about being better than the violence that made you. Teddy became Mike's trainer, 24/7, because Cus was in his 70s, still brilliant, still teaching, still the best boxing mind in the world. But physically unable to train someone like Mike, couldn't demonstrate, couldn't move like he used to, couldn't be in the gym morning to night the way Mike needed. So Teddy did it. Trained Mike every day, 6 days a week, hours and hours. Building technique, building discipline, teaching the peekaboo style Cus invented. Head movement, slipping punches, explosive power from defensive positions, making Mike into what Cus envisioned. And it worked. By 1982, Mike was 15, 2 junior Olympic gold medals, destroying every amateur opponent, looking like exactly what Cus predicted. The future youngest heavyweight champion in history. Everything was perfect. Except it wasn't, because Mike was testing boundaries, the way 15-year-olds do, especially 15-year-olds who never had real parents, who never learned consequences, who spent their childhood surviving instead of being raised. Mike would push. See how far he could go. See what he could get away with. Teddy pushed back, because that was his job. Discipline, structure, boundaries. When Mike got lazy, Teddy made him work harder. When Mike showed attitude, Teddy shut it down. When Mike thought he was special, Teddy reminded him he was just a kid learning to box. No exceptions, no favoritism, same rules for everyone. And this caused friction with Cus. Because Cus loved Mike, really loved him, had adopted him, brought him into his home, saw him not just as a fighter but as a son. And when Teddy disciplined Mike, Cus would soften it, would make excuses, would say Mike had a hard life, cut him some slack, give him room to grow. Teddy disagreed, firmly, believed that's exactly what Mike didn't need more slack, needed firm boundaries, needed to know some lines couldn't be crossed, needed to learn that being talented doesn't mean you get to be terrible. Then came the incident, the thing that couldn't be ignored, couldn't be softened, couldn't be excused. Teddy's sister-in-law, 11 years old, at the gym, just visiting, just being a kid, and Mike grabbed her buttocks, told her what he was going to do to her, sexual, threatening, said it to an 11-year-old child. And according to Teddy, Mike did it partly out of meanness, out of evil, to get back at Teddy for disciplining him, to show who had power, to cross the line in the worst possible way, to hurt Teddy by hurting someone Teddy loved, someone innocent, someone who couldn't protect herself. Teddy found out, and something inside him broke. Not broke like shattered, broke like clarified, broke like suddenly everything became very simple, very clear, very binary. You don't touch his family, you don't threaten children, you don't cross that line, ever, for any reason, and if you do, consequences come, immediate, severe, final. Teddy borrowed a .38 from a friend, got in his car, started looking for Mike, not to talk, not to warn, to teach a lesson that couldn't be taught with words. Some things you only learn when consequences are real, when the cost is absolute, when someone willing to die and willing to kill stands in front of you and makes you understand. Teddy found Mike, pulled up next to him, got out of the car, gun visible. Mike saw him coming, saw what was in Teddy's hand, saw what was in Teddy's eyes, and knew. This wasn't boxing, this wasn't training, this was something else, something final. Teddy walked up to Mike, called him a piece of crap, put the gun to Mike's head, to his ear, point blank, finger on the trigger, and said the words that would define both of their lives forever. If you ever go near my family again, in any way, if you hurt them, if you threaten them, if you do what you said you were gonna do to that child, I'll kill you. Then Teddy pulled the trigger, deliberately missed, but pulled it, made Mike hear that sound, made him feel that moment, made him understand this wasn't a threat, this was a promise. Mike didn't move, didn't speak, didn't fight back, just stood there, 15 years old, facing a man with a gun who just proved he was willing to use it. And maybe for the first time in Mike's life, he understood. Some lines have real consequences. Some people won't back down. Some things matter more than anything else. Teddy got back in his car, drove away, went home, thought it was over, thought Mike learned the lesson, thought life would continue. Gym, training, building a champion, moving forward. But it wasn't over, because Cus had to make a choice. And Cus chose Mike, chose the future heavyweight champion, chose greatness over loyalty, chose potential over principle. Cus sent someone to Teddy, made an offer. Here's the deal. You leave, you disappear, you never speak about what happened, never tell authorities, never make it public. In exchange, Cus will give you 5% of Mike Tyson's career earnings, for the rest of Mike's boxing life. 5% of everything. Millions and millions of dollars, guaranteed. Because Cus knew what was at stake. If this got out, social services would take Mike away. Cus would lose custody, lose his foster son, lose the future champion, lose everything he'd invested. All because a 15-year-old did something terrible and a 26-year-old responded with a gun. So Cus offered money, offered security, offered a fortune. Teddy's response was immediate. Go shove it up your ass. Not because Teddy didn't need money. He did. Not because $30 million wouldn't change his life. It would. but because some things aren't for sale. Some principles matter more than comfort. Some lines you don't cross, even when crossing would make you rich. If you don't have your own dignity, Teddy would say years later, and that starts with simple things like standing up for your family, then you have nothing. So Teddy left. Left the gym, left Cus, left Mike, left the future heavyweight champion, left millions of dollars, left everything. Because an 11-year-old girl was more important than all of it. Because family was more important than money. Because being able to look at himself in the mirror mattered more than being able to afford a mansion. Cus replaced Teddy with Kevin Rooney, another good trainer, another Cus protege, and life continued. Mike kept training, kept winning, became exactly what Cus predicted. Youngest heavyweight champion in history at 20 years old. Undisputed champion. Most feared fighter on the planet. Everything Teddy helped build. And Teddy watched from the outside. Watched Mike become great. Watched the money roll in. Watched what could have been his. $30 million. Maybe more. All because he put a gun to a 15-year-old's head and refused to apologize. Refused to compromise. Refused to let money erase what happened. Mike's version of the story is different. Mike says Teddy wanted him to leave Cus. Wanted Mike to come train with him somewhere else. And when Mike refused to leave Cus, Teddy pulled the gun. Says it wasn't about the girl. It was about jealousy. About Cus loving Mike more than Teddy. About Teddy being a tough guy wannabe who pulled a gun on a 15-year-old and then ran away. But in Mike's own autobiography, written in 2013, Mike admitted it. I was just playing around and I grabbed her butt, and I shouldn't have. It was just a stupid thing to do. I didn't think it through. As soon as I did it, I immediately regretted it. So both versions have truth, and both versions have pain, and both versions have cost. Teddy lost $30 million and a career training the greatest fighter of a generation. Mike lost the trainer who might have saved him from everything that came later. The firings, the divorces, the prison, the bite. Everything that happened after Teddy left might have been different if Teddy had stayed. If Cus had chosen differently. If that line had never been crossed. 30 years passed. Teddy trained other fighters. 18 world champions over his career. Built a reputation. Became a respected commentator. Made a life. But always wondered, what if? What if he'd taken the money? What if he'd stayed? What if Mike had learned the lesson differently? Then in 2013, Turning Stone Casino in Verona, New York, Mike was promoting a boxing show. Teddy was commentating for ESPN. They hadn't spoken in over 30 years, hadn't been in the same room, hadn't acknowledged each other, just silence and distance and unfinished business. Then Mike did something unexpected. Walked up to Teddy, live, on camera, in front of everyone, and spoke. I was wrong. I have a lot of pain, and I just want to heal it. And that was part of it. Right there. They embraced. Two men who had loved each other like family, who had built something together, who had been destroyed by one moment, one choice, one line crossed, finally able to look at each other again, to acknowledge the hurt, to move forward. Teddy told Joe Tessitore, his ESPN colleague, he behaved like a man. What can I say? Because that's what it took. 30 years. But Mike finally understood. What Teddy did wasn't about being tough, wasn't about guns, wasn't about jealousy. It was about family, about boundaries, about standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves, about refusing to let money erase what matters. And Teddy understood too. That Mike was 15. That 15-year-olds make terrible choices. That holding on to anger for 30 years doesn't heal anything. That forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to be better than the pain. In 2023, Teddy appeared on the Lex Fridman podcast, talked about the incident, about Cus, about the choice, about the money, about the regret. I regret very much that I had to. I hated him for putting me in that position. How dare he think that somebody's feelings are that trivial? But Teddy doesn't regret pulling the gun, doesn't regret walking away, doesn't regret refusing the money. because those $30 million would have cost him something more valuable. His ability to look at that 11-year-old girl and know he stood up for her. His ability to teach his own children about principles. His ability to live with himself. Cus taught Teddy about character, about being a better person, about standing up for what's right. And then Cus betrayed those teachings to protect Mike, to protect the dream, to protect greatness. But Teddy chose to believe in what Cus taught, not what Cus did. Chose to forgive Cus by embracing Cus's own philosophy, even though it cost him everything, even though Cus chose Mike over him. Because that's what the gun was really about, not violence. It was about one simple question. What's the line you won't cross? What's the thing you'll protect, even if it costs you $30 million? What matters more than money, more than success, more than being part of greatness? For Teddy Atlas, it was an 11-year-old girl. His family. The people who trust you to protect them when they can't protect themselves. That was the line. And when that line got crossed, the gun came out. The trigger got pulled. The choice got made. And 40 years later, sitting in podcasts and interviews, Teddy can still say without hesitation, "I'd do it again." Not because I'm proud of it. I'm not. But because some lines exist for a reason, and some principles are worth more than money, and some choices define who you are forever.